Good morning. Hi, everybody. Hi, Chrissy. Hi, Terry. I see a few pictures up there so far. Hey, Angela.
You must be beyond excited.
I am very excited. I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed.
Well, this time next month you'll be there and it'll all be over with.
Yeah, this time in a couple of weeks, I'll be on my way. So counting the days.
It's exciting.
Yeah, very excited. But yeah, still lots to do. Look at everybody a second to come in here. There was something wrong with the Facebook event. I went today to look and I don't know if it was set up incorrectly. It said 0 people had seen it. So I was hoping, I'm glad that you guys are here. Hi, Jean. It's so good to see everybody. And today I'm going to give you a bunch more little tips and tricks for Paris, a lot of them about good ways to, save some money or not spend a bunch of it. And feel free to jump in. You could even kind of send me a message or, and definitely, unmute yourself and pop in. I know Ellen and Chrissy, I know a lot of people have a lot of really great ideas to save money. And if it's something I don't bring up, definitely let me know. Oh, good, Chrissy. I'm glad you saw it. Hi, Judy. So nice to see all of you. I hope it's not too hot where you are. Looks like Paris it's raining now. So they definitely need that. It's supposed to rain for like a week. And they definitely need that in France. But it's still muggy, incredibly muggy, I guess. All righty. I also use these videos to go through the clothes that I still have left that I didn't decide yet if I'm keeping or not. So every Sunday I go, okay, let's see. I'm like, oh, let's try this. And usually sometimes I go through like 2 or 3 things like, why am I saving this? Just get rid of it. So I find that I have more purses going, and I've not usually been a big purse person, but I found all these like amazing vintage purses my grandmother had, like alligator and snake skin, just beautiful, beautiful vintage purses. And every time I keep finding them, I keep squirreling them away. And I was like, I'm going with like way more purses than I need, but they were my grandma's and they're pretty amazing. So, and I need to share all those. All right, we'll go ahead and jump in here. Get a couple more people in. But I wanted to share some good ideas because Paris, as we know, it can be a tad bit expensive, but it doesn't have to be. That's what I always tell people especially when I started going and I was going repeatedly and people would say, isn't it expensive? I was like, well, sure it is, but it doesn't always have to be. So there's a bunch of really good ways and good things that you could do so you're not spending a fortune. You could still have those do great things and go to great restaurants and maybe not have it cost quite as much. One thing we did one before about airfare, and then ended up being almost the entire talk. But one thing I did want to kind of mention as far as flying over, and I have a friend of mine that does this, and sometimes your time is more valuable than the few dollars you might save. And when it comes to your flights, right now I did notice that a lot of the flights are really coming down, especially for the fall and going into the winter, because they've been, as we know, incredibly, incredibly high this year, especially during the summer, because they're all trying to recoup those costs. But I do notice them really coming down, as well as a lot of deals coming. I think that TAP, the Portugal airline, those have been coming down quite a bit. Most of the times you have to route through Portugal. If you're lucky to be on the East Coast, then that's usually not that big of a deal. Some of us coming from the West Coast, it might add an extra stop. And that's where it's kind of the saving your time. I have a friend of mine that will just to save $100, he will route his way through at like 4 different stops along the way and long layovers. And I was like, dude, how much money are you spending in the airport on each one of those? Because as we know, it's a fortune. Like every time, that one time I came back and I had, I think 4 or 5 hours, maybe in New York, even though I avoid JFK like the plague. But I remember going someplace that I'll just go get a salad and a glass of wine. And the glass of wine was like $18. And the Caesar salad was like 28, and it wasn't even very good. And I was like, ugh, I'm back in America. But it is, it's just a fortune in the airport. It's kind of crazy. So, that's where it's kind of like, are you going to save $100, but it's going to take you, 20 hours to get there? Because, I want to get there as fast as possible. And so that's just kind of one of those things, kind of weigh that out. And he still calls me all the time, and he buys his tickets separately, and each leg he buys separately, and then sometimes it's different airlines. When then you also have a huge issue with your luggage. If it's going through different airlines, you're really up in that risk of losing something. So I just now listen and say, well, you know what you should do, and he just does whatever he wants. So that's just how it goes. But once you get there, there's so many things that you could do is for free. Angela, I definitely agree on the one. My rule now is just one layover too. Like, I'm like, nope, I don't want to do that. But there's lots of things to do for free. One of my favorite things to do, especially if you love art, is to visit the churches, because the churches were the original museums. So long before we had the museums in Europe and in Paris, we had churches. So in those churches, you could find some of the greatest artists from the past, including of my favorite, Delacroix, which the anniversary of his death was yesterday. But you can find Delacroix, of course, in Saint-Sulpice, but also you could also find him in the Saint-Denis Church, and then Saint Louis, Saint Paul. But you could also find Lebrun in the Saint Nicolas de Chardonnay. There's so many of the different churches. Théodore Chassereau is in Saint Roch, which is really close to, the monument to Jeanne d'Arc. So there's tons and tons of the churches that you could visit and see all of this great art. There's the Saint Eustache, where it has some more contemporary art, like the Keith Haring, which was the last piece that he did before he died. There's also that kind of bas relief of the Leal Market that I know a lot of people like. And I did see recently they took it out to restore it a bit. So if you're going to go in the next few months and you're going to go there to look for it, it's being cleaned up. So there is some contemporary art. There's the Saint-Marie, which is really close to the Pompidou, that has that's kind of an odd church, because it's not, I don't know if they really use it as a church anymore, but it's usually a lot of like local students' art that they put in there. So it's kind of it's kind of an interesting one. But there's so many of the churches, even if you're not religious, even if you're not Christian or Catholic, I always love to go in them, because it's just, there's so much beautiful things you could find in there, and the statues and the art, and and then we all know Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which every time you walk in there, it's the first time I saw it after the renovation. I walked in and I was like, holy crap. And then I was like, oh, at least I said holy. But I mean, that church is just absolutely stunning. And Saint-Chapelle, which is a little bit different because it's not technically a church anymore, and you have to pay to get in there. But definitely anytime I walk by a church, to pop in, especially if it's one I haven't seen before, because you never know what you might find in there. There is one that's over in near Colincourt, which is where my friend Catherine lives, that I want to go pop in there, because one of the Nelly Jacquemart, who we know from the Jacquemart André museum, that was Nelly Jacquemart, was an artist, and there's some of her paintings in that church. So that's on my list. I haven't made it to that one quite yet. So I want to go check that out. But pop into these, because it is, the first place that they had, because church had so much money. And it's also how they tell the stories. For people back then that didn't know how to read was through the art and the statuary and the facades of the church. Of course, there's Notre Dame de Paris, which, we have a little less than 2 years that we should hopefully be able to get back inside. They did announce that next year, I think it's the end of next year, they haven't really given an exact date, but at the Louvre, they are going to, in the Petit Gallery, which is in the Richelieu wing, which has always kind of been where they've done these smaller exhibits that run for a year that are kind of centered around education, and they're kind of supposed to be for children, but I always think they're great. They're really neat how they do them. But the new director, she decided to get rid of that. But they are going to put a exhibit in there at the end of next year, I believe. I'll keep an eye on the announcement. Dedicated to Notre Dame. So a lot of the stuff from the treasury and some of the art is going to go in there, and it'll probably be in there until before the church opens. A lot of the paintings, the Lemai's, which I'm obsessed with, that were in Notre Dame, they had 13 of those left. There was originally 75 of them, and those were created by the Goldsmith Guild, and every year on May 1st, they would dedicate a new one to Notre Dame, and they were very large, and they'd hang them on that first pillar to the right of the altar. And they were all, you have them done by Charles Lebrun and Lesueur, all these people. The Notre Dame still had 13. Some of them have been lost forever. Some of them are scattered at other museums around Paris. And then there's even one at Saint-Eustache and Saint-Germain-des-Prés. But the ones that they had are being restored. So I'm kind of obsessed with them, and I want to find all of the ones. And I found this book in the Louvre Bibliothèque, which is kind of my kryptonite, which, let me tell you how much fun it is trying to go through my books right now and decide which ones I really don't need, which is usually not very many. But there was this book that is a very thick, kind of a coffee table book that's all about the Lemai's, and I am obsessed with it. And so I can't wait to track them all down. There's a few museums in Paris that have a few of them. So I want to go and find all of them. But they should have that soon. They should announce it soon of when that is going to open. And then, yeah, like I said, all of them are getting restored right now. They show it on the French news all the time. And so they're getting them all cleaned up, because it was good to come out of there, because they're just covered with, years and years of soot and dirt and dust and everything else that comes from being inside with all those candles and everything. So that's going to be really exciting to finally see, and just to get back into Notre Dame is, I can't even imagine what that's going to be like the first time we get to walk in there. So that'll be exciting. We have some comments about Air France prices starting to come down. Yeah, definitely, it is a little bit better. They're definitely coming down a lot. And they say, yeah, San Francisco is Air France, because I don't think Delta flies direct from there. But yeah, I try to. You're lucky also down there in California. Here, up here in the Northwest, we have to go someplace else first, up to Seattle, and then, but our flight to Seattle is kind of, once you get to cruising altitude, they say it's time to prepare for the descent. So it's a pretty, I think it's like 30 minutes or something like that. It's pretty short. Another great thing is with the museums, there are free museums to see in Paris. It's the Paris Museum Collection. So it's the ones that are actually done by the city, and most of those are all free unless it is a special exhibit. They also oversee the Carnavalet and the catacombs. The catacombs and then the crypt under Notre Dame, those two are not free, so you do have to have a ticket for that. The catacombs has been doing something very strange lately, because I have some clients, I'm trying to get them tickets. They're only really releasing tickets like a week out. So if you want to go there and you're looking months in advance, which it used to be able to do, you couldn't buy tickets. And so it's, and they always sell out. And so it's a very risky game. I'm sure there's some other ways to work around it, and going with some tour companies or doing some Viator, some of those online websites. But those always make me nervous, because there are some fake ones out there. So just be kind of careful. When it comes to the museums, I say to always go directly to the museum's website, go directly to the Louvre website, the Orsay website. A lot, and I see it every single day. Everybody still uses the skip the line. And it's at this point now, it's a scam. Skip the line went away with the terrorist attacks in 2015. The line is essentially security for everywhere you go. And so what it only means is that you are in a different line from the people that have to wait in line to buy tickets. So if you have a ticket, you will get in before the other line does. But it isn't, I see all the time people, a Louvre ticket is 17 euros and people are spending 30 euros, 32 euros on a website because it says skip the line. And so that ticket just costs you twice as much money. So it's kind of just kind of keep an eye on that. And I just think if you go directly to the actual museum's website, it's just a smarter way to do it. But all of these museums, the Petit Palais, which is another one that's a beautiful museum you should definitely check out. There's a Victor Hugo, Balzac Museum, the Bordeaux Museum. All of those are free. And so you could go anytime. Some of them will have it where if it is a special exhibit, you have to pay. And so that is, but I recently went to Victor Hugo and it was a special exhibit and it still was free. It just depends. The Petit Palais is definitely, you have, and usually it's like 6, 7, 8 euros. So it's not very much. So that's a good way to kind of, if you want to go. Petit Palais is a pretty good sized museum. It's the collection of the city of Paris. So it goes everything from, medieval to all the way up to, the, 19th century, early 20th century. So it's really cool. You'll find impressionists there. You'll find a little bit of everything. And then of course the cafe that's out there in the courtyard, which is nice. If you're around there and you just want to go in there or pop in and go sit in the courtyard and have a coffee, you could do that too. It's just free and pop right in there. So it's pretty cool. Oh, Angela, you got the Frida Kahlo. Yeah, so that's the one because the Palais Gallier is technically a Paris museum and it's technically free, but they're only open when there's a special exhibit. So technically it's not free at all. You have to have a ticket. They have been doing a rotation of some of their permanent collection that just started this year down in the basement. So they do change that out, but you have to have a ticket to go in there. Again, it's not very much. But that's a really great one. The Frida Kahlo is going to be amazing. They always time theirs around Fashion Week. So their new exhibit is always going to open around right before Fashion Week in the fall in September, and then before in February. So they always kind of time it. You see most museums kind of start their exhibits always kind of start around the same time. They usually, most of them will end in July and August for the first part of the year. And then they don't reopen until mid to late September. Even though, these museums are working on these things, 3-4 years in advance because, they have to get these pieces from around the world and other museums, and that's a lot of negotiating. But it is also France and they take August off, and so they need to ease into September a little. So usually the new exhibits don't open until the 3rd or 4th week in September. Also if you are going, and keep an eye on the school calendar. So, every 6 weeks, those kids in France get 2 weeks off. And when that happens, even like I have worked with people that even if they don't have kids, or it was an organization that for American women in France. And most of these women were, maybe more towards the, maybe they had grandchildren and they were Americans, but they would be like, oh, we can't do that because it's during the school vacation. It's like, well, but you're not on the vacation. You're not on the school vacation. So they will, a lot of places, like if you're going and you want to go see, the Orsay does music, they do little, concerts and stuff. Like my favorite, the Bibliothèque d'Annan at the Louvre, sometimes they do special readings and things like that. None of that happens during those weeks. So especially like Easter week, the summer, around Christmas, obviously, but because they do these vacations every 6 weeks, everything else kind of stops around that. So if you are going, most of this would never affect anybody unless you've gone a lot and say you want to go see a concert inside the Orsay. So just kind of keep an eye on that, because sometimes I've been there. I noticed it one time where I was like, wait, where's all the special cool things that should be going on? Because most museums will do a lot of maybe a special night where you go in there with the curator to go see the collection, or, again, most of these things are in French, but it all kind of stops when it's the school vacations, everything kind of stops. So just kind of keep an eye on that. If there's things that you really want to do or see, if there's a special exhibit you really want to see, to find that information isn't always easy. Some of the museum websites are really good, and they'll tell you these are the exhibits for the next year and a half. The Louvre used to be really great about that. The Orsay used to be really good about that. But with COVID, it kind of, I think it'll probably get back to that. But with COVID, it's kind of, they're a lot slower with releasing that information. I did just see today the Paris museums, they have a whole thing if you go to their website, and it has a document that you could download, and it has all of the exhibits. And there's one next year at the Petit Palais all about Sarah Bernhardt, and I'm super excited about that one. Really excited. It opens mid-April. I think it was April 11th. So I'm really excited to see that one at the Petit Palais, because they have that amazing painting of her lounging on her chaise lounge. And Sarah Bernhardt was such an amazing character of a woman. But you could sometimes find that stuff. It's never in one place. It's really sometimes difficult to track down, but you could always send me a message if there's something that you were like, hey, who's the Impressionist coming? Is there any special exhibits? Just let me know, because I kind of keep a running list every time I come across something. But that's a good way if you want to save money. Go to those museums that are for free, or the tickets are pretty low. When it also comes to I get some people that ask about the passes. So there's the Paris Museum Pass, which it's funny, I rarely see that talked about anymore with people. I think it's more of the first time you go to Paris, it's something that, you grab. Those are good if you are going to pack in to see a lot of museums in a very short period of time. They sell them for 2 days, 4 days, or 6 days, and they start at 52 euros, go up to 78 euros. That's just for one person. I tell people, make a list of the museums you want to see, actually cost it out, be like, okay, the Louvre is 17, the Orsay is, 14, or whichever it is, and then figure out how many of those you're going to see, if it's really going to save you money. 2 days, you would be very hard pressed to be able to get its worth in 2 days, because you're just going to have to really run around and to really pack that in. I did it the first time I went. I think I bought the 6-day one. I think it was there for 6 days, and I feel like it was more expensive, but one was cool. And I don't think they do this anymore. You were able to book a time for the Eiffel Tower. It also gave you like the hop on, hop off bus that you got to do for a day. So it had other benefits to it. But I just, always just like cost it out and say, these are the museums I want to go see. This is how much the ticket is, because it might be, break even. You do still need, like for the Louvre, even if you have the pass, you do still have to make a reservation, and you select the free the Paris Museum Pass. And then you'll have to show your pass when you go there to scan your ticket. So it kind of doesn't, it kind of in some ways defeats the purpose, because you still have to go online, you still have to reserve that ticket. So you're still kind of going through that, but just cost it out to see if it's actually beneficial for you. Because it could definitely, if you're going to be there for 2 days and you want to go see 4 or 5 museums and pack it all in, then it definitely does save some money. But kind of check on that. There is also with the museums, the first Sunday of the month, some of the museums are open for free. The Louvre is not one of them. The Louvre stopped doing that a few years ago. They haven't brought it back with COVID. What they did change it to was Saturday evenings. So it was like Saturday evening from like 6 to 9:45. You could go to the Louvre for free. And some of the Louvre was closed off. That was mostly like the main areas that you got to go. They haven't brought that back yet. They're supposed to be bringing that back. sometime, but at this point, it's, if they haven't brought it back during the height of summer, it might be, next spring by the time they bring it back. But with those free days, and for the Orsay, they've announced that you have to have a ticket for that. So you go online and you book the time ticket for the Orsay on that first Sunday of the month. And so you have to have that. You can't just walk up for the Orsay. But with those things, keep in mind that it also means everybody in the world goes to the museums on those days because it's free. So it's again where those things like that 16 euros might be worth my sanity because when there's that many people in there, and if there's things that if you're unlike me and you just want to just browse through it and not really look too closely at things, and then it's probably perfect for you. I am one of those that has to stop and look at everything, even though I've been in there 55 times, and I want to stop and look at and read the plaque and do all that. And so if there's a ton of people, it gets a little frustrating at times. But that's, it is a great way to go, and, go first thing in the morning. Especially because it's a Sunday. And so most people are in Paris sleep in on Sundays. It's usually nothing really gets moving until like 11-ish. So that's a good way to definitely save a few dollars, but also check and make sure that website of that museum, it even says that, it's part of it, or if you have to have a ticket. Some museums have changed that. They've relaxed that. The Orsay might actually be going back to making you have a ticket before you get there, but it does, kind of fluctuate. If they haven't done it now, I think it'd be strange for them to bring that back after the crush of the summer, but I also don't know if there's going to be, I think it's still going to be very busy in Paris, unlike, the fall still is always busy, but I think it's the numbers are going to stay up there. But, like the Louvre, you have to have that ticket in advance. That someday will change. The Carnavalet changed that with having, you don't have to have a ticket in advance now, a time ticket, even though it's a free museum. You don't have to do that anymore at the Carnavalet. So you could just walk right in. I've done it a few times. It wasn't really an issue at all. But just kind of check online if there's something you really want to see, like you've always wanted to go to, the Orsay or the Marmottan Monet or something like that. I always advise people buy that ticket for first thing in the morning and go there first. If it's a thing you really, really want to see, just have the ticket in advance and not risk it. And then that way in your afternoon, you could be kind of, a little more freewheeling and, the Fondation Louis Vuitton, because we're over there in near there. They always, if they have a big exhibit, you definitely want to have that ticket in advance. The Morozov collection that they just had that ended, it was crazy. You had to get that ticket and they would sell out days in advance. That was an interesting one because it was the Russian family, the Morozov family, and they had this huge art collection. And then the war in Ukraine started. And there are some pieces that are, I guess, still in France because they were, the Morozov collection then has been scattered through different museums. It's not, with the family anymore. But some of the pieces were owned by the Russian oligarchs. And, as you know, France and most of the companies or countries clamped down on all of them. So some of those paintings are technically still, I guess, in France. So which was interesting to see if they were even going to let that out to get back to France or to get back to Russia at all. But that was, that exhibit was amazing. The painting of Van Gogh that he did in the prison was it was one of those that I knew it was there, and it's in this one little room. I see Sharon, I see you shaking your head. It was one of those, when I see those things, I just always kind of stop and just like close my eyes for a second and just be like, okay, because you only get to see something like that the first time once. So I'm always just like, okay, like just shut everything out. I'm going to take a deep breath and then I'm going to go see this, for the very first time and just be like, okay, that was my moment. And it was just absolutely amazing. That whole collection, they do a really good job with those, the Fondation Louis Vuitton. They're going to do one with Rothko, which has a very random tie to Portland, Oregon, because he moved to Portland, Oregon. I mean, he was, quite a long time ago, but he went to my high school, which is just so random because I think he's Russian. It was originally, he's born, I think, in Eastern Europe, But it's just this random thing that I was just like, when did he come here? It was quite a long time ago. But they're doing a Rothko exhibit, I think I saw sometime next year, and I only saw that because I was watching it an auction, I think on Sotheby's, and there was a Rothko collection, and it said in the notes, they said this painting has already been earmarked to be in this exhibit at the Fondation Louis Vuitton in 2023. So I love to watch those auctions because sometimes you find out little things like that, little secrets. But just make sure if it's something you really, really want to see, just go and get that ticket. And that way you're going to be, get in there for sure. What was, I saw Chrissy. Oh, the taxis. Yeah. So when it comes to the taxis and, Uber and all of that kind of stuff in Paris, I did want to mention that because the taxis and the Uber is, when it comes from CDG, I always take a taxi. I am not going to, after 12 hours in the air and unlimited hours flying, and I have, 2 suitcases. This time I'm going to have a whole lot more, quite a few more suitcases, but I am not going to try to negotiate those stairs at a metro stop or any of that. So I just always make sure to I just plan on getting a taxi. One thing with taxi versus Uber, and there's also the metro and there's the bus and everything, but with Uber, one thing to watch when you're there, and I do this as it's a smart way to save your phone, but when you put your and I don't know about like the Androids, but with an iPhone, when you slide it down and you put it into the battery saver mode, if you're going to order an Uber, make sure you don't have that on, because they actually did a thing, and it was in the Le Parisien newspaper, and they tested it with 2 phones, one in battery saver, one just normal, ordering the same Uber at the same exact place, going to the same exact direction, and the one that was in battery saver was like €4 more. And it's because they see that you're like desperate, so they'll charge you more for it. So if you're going to order an Uber, kind of keep that in mind. For some things I'll use Uber, but if I'm going to, I actually like the G7. We've talked about this before, I think when we had Chrissy on, and there's the G7 app. The G7 is great, and you could just, use the app just like you would use Uber. With Uber, you have surge pricing. So there has been times where if the traffic is bad, it could all of a sudden you get a message while you're in there and saying, oh, this is actually going to cost you more. When there was the metro strike going on, trips to the airport were like €200, because Uber could do that instead of, the taxis, which will stay that 53 or 58 to CDG from the left or right bank. But it is just kind of keep an eye on that. Of course, with the metro and the bus, you could go get the tickets. You could either get the Navigo card that you reload, but you could also do just still buy the tickets. So you can still get the 10 tickets. And I used to have so many problems with those things, like demagnetizing. I would buy 10 and I'd put them in my wallet, and I'd get 2 of them to work, and then after that none of them would work. But they'll exchange them for you if they'll see that they don't work. But you could also have the Navigo pass that you could buy and then just reload it and save it with you. They do have on the Android phones, they have it so you could do it on your phone, and they're supposed to be bringing that to iPhones later. And I think they do have an app, and I think you can reload it, but there's still something that's not fully there yet. I just walk everywhere, so I rarely actually take the metro because I just walk most of the places. But yeah, it is kind of just, those are kind of little things to kind of keep in mind. Also with your phone, depending, and it's gotten so much better in the last few years. It used to be where, you'd go over there, and depending on the carrier, like AT&T, it was $10 a day. And that was like $10 for however many days you were there. And I came back one time after being there for 24 days and I had my old work phone and I came back to a lovely bill of $240. And that's when I decided I am getting a SIM card. You could order a holiday orange SIM card. You could actually order it on Amazon. I have a link on my website because I have like a little travel little tab that says like travel accessories or something, some of the favorite ones I have, and you could order it and it's like $47. You get it in advance, so you have it with you. As soon as like the plane lands, you just pop it into your phone and then it just starts working. You could also register that number. To reload it, it is just, you know, again, it's only like 40 or 50 euros. After a month, you have to reload it, but or 2 weeks when you first get it, it's good for 2 weeks. But it's, I mean, I use it all the time and use data all the time, and I never ever run out of it. And I'm sometimes streaming things or making videos for an hour. I never run out of data with it. But it's really a great way. You know, if you're only going to be there for a week or two, you know, 7 days or you know, go ahead and just use your phone. But if you want to save a little bit, you know, it's kind of a good way to do it. There is of course Wi-Fi in a lot of places, or Wi-Fi as they say in France, which is always funny to hear, Wi-Fi. But a lot of the gardens actually have it too. A lot of the municipal gardens around the city have it. There's usually a sign, but it's really bad. It's not good. And like I've walked around before and like walking with your phone looking for the bars to see if they're working. But and also the G7. So the G7s have Wi-Fi and it's all the same code. And so once you've done it and put it in there, I've been sitting at a cafe before when I would just have my phone on airplane mode and all of a sudden I get a text or I get an email and it's like, where did that just come from? And it was because a G7 cab was stopped at the light close enough to me for long enough that my phone picked up the Wi-Fi. And so that's kind of a nice one. There is VPN there. Yeah, the VPN is great just to have just in general, especially if there's some of those shows you want to be able to watch. I have a VPN. I use it more so here because I only watch the French news in French every morning. So I just put that on, but I use it to watch French shows. And it's great because I use ExpressVPN and I have that across everything, my laptop, phone, my iPad, everything. And so you could use it when you're there too. You could put it on in case there's like, you know, I really want to watch something on HBO but I did actually, side note, I started watching that. Did you guys see that documentary about Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward on HBO Max? I started watching it last night. It's really, really good. So check that out. But those are kind of little things as far as when you're there and then the accessibility and everything. You know, those are good little ways to kind of save some money here or there. So you have more money for the good things like food. So when it comes to the restaurants, there's, you know, if there's restaurants you really, really want to go to, and maybe it's on the more expensive side, I always recommend going for lunch. And a lot of times, it's different now because I'm working so much when I'm there. I don't have as much time in the middle of the day, but I'll usually most of the time have like my main meal at lunch. And so that's where sometimes you could go to a restaurant and then they always have most of them have the you know, the prefix meal, and it's usually only Monday through Friday. They don't normally offer those on the weekend, but you could usually get like 3 courses and it could be anywhere from like 28 to 38 euros. 3 courses, usually includes dessert. But the food is always fantastic. Like Willie's Wine Bar, one of my favorites. He always has that. And then the menu has like a choice of between 2 or 3, you know, choices for each one of the courses. But it's a really great way to go to some of those restaurants that maybe at dinner, it's going to cost you like, you know, twice as much. You could go to one of these great restaurants and have the same great food, smaller, most likely smaller portions as well. And then at a much, much better price. Some of those you still want to make reservations. One of my favorites, La Mijon, if you haven't been there, over in the 7th, is absolutely fantastic. And I was looking for a client yesterday and there's like no availability in all of September. He's already sold out. It's a small restaurant. It fills up very quickly, but that's a really great one. If you want to go there, go for lunch. It's not like you could go there for dinner and I think it's about 82 euros. If Catherine is still here. I think it's about 82 euros for dinner. And I think the chef's is like 6 or 7 courses. And oh my God, the Parmesan soup and the rice pudding at the end, and anything that Stefan Jango does is absolutely delicious. That's definitely one to go and check out, but it's a really good way to eat at some of these great places and experience some great food and maybe it not cost as much. L'Ami Jean is L'Ami and then Jean. There's Catherine. L'Ami Jean, it's really great. The food is, there's so much. There was 2 of us and I was almost dying. Like, I don't think I could eat another bite. And then the rice pudding came in and I'm not a rice pudding fan. And oh my, I'm literally like salivating thinking about it. It's so good. It has like caramel and like these caramelized nuts and all of this stuff that you get to kind of put on top of it. It's just absolutely delicious. And Stefan Jango is usually in the kitchen screaming and yelling at people. He came up with Yves Camdebor, as my favorite. So they work together and they, now they all have their own little places all over. It's really, really great. Another great thing to do to save money is to have a picnic. And of course, when you go, it always astounds me just going to the grocery store there, and there's a little tiny grocery store right across the street from my apartment, and I go in there and I could be getting cheese and like a bottle of wine or 2 and a bunch of other things, like a whole big bag of groceries, and it was like 25 euros. And it's just so much less expensive, and it's just so much better. Like the wine might be 9 euros and it's gonna be, that same wine here would be like $60. And the cheese and like everything, like I just always amazed when I first came back this last time to the US and I ordered groceries like for the next day and it was like $100 and I think I got like 6 things and I was like, what? In like, it was just the difference. That is where I'm just always astounded. And with inflation, a lot of things in the Paris and French grocery stores has gone up. And it was just like, but it's still so inexpensive. So it's great to go, especially if you're in Saint-Germain, you could go to the Marseille Saint-Germain and go to the Fromagerie Sandaire and get all of your cheese. And they're the greatest. They have the Fond d'Ambert and the Napoleon is one of my favorites, but they also have the Brilliant Savarin, and depending on the season, of course, they slice it in half and fill it with truffles. Like, so you have like actual slices of truffles in there. And it's a really creamy cheese. Oh, it's just delicious. But you could also go there and get, this time, I can't wait. In a couple of weeks, I'll be able to go and hopefully get those huge figs that are just gorgeous. There's also the amazing guy that sells all of, like, he makes his own pate and all of these just delicious things. So you could literally go in there and get everything you need. There's even a wine store, and then walk across the street to the Mayo bakery and get a baguette. And every time I walk by there, I'm like, oh, it smells so delicious. But you go get all of these things and just walk up to, the Jardin de Luxembourg and have your own little picnic. And that, it, depending on how many of you, that's, I go get that stuff and then I have it for like 4 days. Maybe not the wine, but I have all that stuff to last for a good few days. And so it's really great. It's a really great way. And I even tell people, like clients that I do trip planning for, I just tell them that they need to do that for one evening. Just, there's one evening that you should just go get that stuff, either if you have it in your apartment or take it down to the Seine if it's, during the spring or summer, early fall, or just take it to a picnic. They were trying at one point to crack down on drinking in the parks. And the one time I did this at the Luxembourg, I was like terrified. And I kept the wine like in my bag on the ground. And I was and then I forgot a cup. I forgot to bring a glass. And so I had to go to the little kiosk guys and bought an espresso. And then I threw it out, which I don't know what I was thinking, because then I put the wine in, like I rinsed it with water, but it was still like coffee-ish. And I was like hiding it, and I was like filling it up with the wine, and then I looked around and everybody's just sitting there with their wine, and the security people are walking by, and apparently it wasn't a big deal, but I didn't want to get kicked out of France. But it was it's definitely, you should do that at least once, because it's really fun. And the cheese there, and just get some saucisson and all of that good stuff, and some tomatoes, the little tomatoes, which is, I always have that when people come over when I'm back here, and they always are just like, why do you have a bowl of tomatoes? And there's such a thing. Like, if you guys have had apéro, especially with French people, there's always a little bowl of cherry tomatoes. But the cherry tomatoes, they're just like, oh, they're just delicious. They're so much better. But I always have that now. And I always buy cherry tomatoes just to pop them in my mouth and eat them. And oh yes, the radishes and French butter. I mean, any sort of vehicle that gets that French butter in without just using, like, a fork is always really great. But the groceries, that is a big way. I know a lot of people like Ellen, she has her her lovely husband that's an amazing chef. So I think they're always making great things. I never cooked there, which now, I have all this La Creuset that's kind of like between my La Creuset and all of my books. That's like the Sophie's choice of this whole thing. But I'm also like, well, I never cook anything in my apartment. I think I've warmed something up in the convection/microwave oven. At some point, I mean, I've made like a salad, but I've never actually cooked anything. So I will have to change that. But I do. But I mean, I did cook. I wrote a whole cookbook that I self-published like 10 years ago around the Tour de France. So I do cook. I just don't do it when I'm there very much. And I just, oh, Catherine, you're coming over for dinner. I just have outside my door, minutes away. I go to Le Bon Comptoir and they feed me. So, but those are all really some good, easy ideas to have, to save some money. And one thing with the tickets too, I was going to mention is, you buy all these tickets online, and then I've been with people, I've taken clients to places, and they look for the tickets, and they're, you're doing the thing where you're like trying to find the email, or you're scrolling through your, and you're in Paris. So you've taken like 10,000 photos in 3 days, and you're looking for those tickets. One thing I always tell people to do is to screenshot it. And you could put, at least on an iPhone, I'm sorry, I don't really know Android very much, but you could create an album in your photos. And so I will even do this if I'm taking, like, if I'm with a group of people for days, I create, like, this is Susan's folder, and I'll screenshot all the tickets and put them in there. So when you get to that museum, you just have one place to click here. Also, what if it doesn't pick up the signal and you can't get into, your into your email? But you could go and, have them in there in this one little folder, and everything's in there. And then after you go there, I just take it off and delete it, because then, the next one that comes up, favorites is a good way. But the problem is my favorites, Chrissy, I usually have about 1,000 photos in my favorites. And so it makes it so it's even harder. It just is, a little bit less time than going through my 98,000 photos on my phone. So that is that, but having it in there, you're, right now you no longer even need your vaccination card to fly into the country. Just, I would keep it with you. They did pass a law that they could still bring that back on the borders. So it's not something that's completely, gone until it's gone. But right now you don't need it. You could go in and out, even if you're not vaccinated. Getting the test, if you're vaccinated, great. Getting a test, it just makes you feel a little better on that flight. Stuck in a tin can for 10 hours, but it does eliminate some stress going to get that test to fly back to the US. Is definitely a thing. Oh, Jean, that's great. That's a great idea. Put it in your tickets, or tickets in your notes. Yeah, so there's all these great things on your phone. One thing I always do for clients that I do planning for is I also create a custom Google map for them. So everything I've given them about like these are the restaurants to go to, these are the things to do. I create a Google custom map, which is really easy to do. And then you share it with them. And I put all of the locations that were in there in the information. So if you're going, some people I know do like they plan in advance every meal, every single thing they're doing, down to the hour. I think you should still leave a little bit of time to sit and enjoy lunch for 2 hours and on a terrace, maybe not have that stringent of a schedule. But you could, it's really easy to do that Google Maps. And so if you're someplace, especially if you're not super familiar with the streets and getting around, you could easily just go, open your Google custom map and see, oh, like, okay, I'm supposed to go to this, museum. Where is it? And it'll instantly go in there without you having to upload it. With the Wi-Fi, sometimes the Google Maps, if you take them offline, they should still work, but they don't always work. So that's sometimes where I will then, open it up. Back in when I was first going and I didn't know where things were as easily, I would open it up and screenshot it, even screenshot the directions, screenshot the map. And this is why there's 98,000 photos on my phone. Because I take all these doggone screenshots. But those are all really good ones. Oh yeah, Catherine brought up the cemeteries. The cemeteries are another great place to go and see some art for free. Especially at Père Lachaise, you could go see a miniature version of Winged Victory. You could see Psyche being revived by a kiss. You could see like there's a bunch of, some of the major pieces. The Tomb of Jericho has a bas-relief on the front in bronze of the Raft of the Medusa, except for was really funny when they did it. The gentleman that was on the edge that was falling off of the raft that was naked, and the version on his tomb, they covered him up, his lower areas. They covered his covered him up because that's apparently offensive in the cemetery. But it's a really, like, I love to just go to Père Lachaise and just walk around and just aimlessly walk around, which is kind of your only choice because it is so big. But you can go, there's around every entrance on the outside, there's different little floral shops. Pop into any of those and just ask them for a map. You could usually buy a map for 1 or 2 euros. And you could just use that. I still have mine. I take it with me when I go. You could also, there's a couple really great books that I love that I have linked on my website under my boutique. One's called The Permanent Parisians, and there's two. The Permanent Parisians, they're both really great, and they will have all of the big, so you have, Montparnasse and Montmartre, and also Père Lachaise, and then the Passy Cemetery, which is where Manet is buried. But you could go through, they have a lot of like those big people you want to find, and they'll tell you where. Sometimes they even have a little map in there. You could also go to look online and download and print a map before you go. Most of the cemeteries also have the huge plaques, and they'll have lots of the famous people, and they'll tell you which section they are. But Père Lachaise is like, there's no rhyme or reason to the lanes and the streets, and you have to walk looking down pretty much at all times because it's just like you're gonna just about kill yourself. And I did a live from, I don't know if you remember it, I did a live last October. It was kind of a couple Sundays before Halloween, and we walked around in there just kind of aimlessly walking around. And then I joked about getting, oh, it'd be horrible to get locked in here. And then I did. And I was locked in there for about 20 minutes. But I finally was able to get out, and then my signal died in the middle of it. I didn't know it. So there was a little bit of a moment of like, okay, this isn't great. But it is massive, but I definitely recommend going. It is really, really cool. Of course you have Edith Piaf there. You have Jim Morrison, Oscar Wilde. All of these are kind of the Eloise and Abelard. You have, all of these people that are there. And a lot of times, they're not so hard to find because that's where all the crowds are. So if you're starting to walk down and it's kind of this direction, just look where the people are. A lot of times, they're off of the street because they're huge square or somewhat shaped plots, and they could be 100 graves that are in there. They're not all, they'll just say it's in this section, and this thing is like an acre. So it's if there's somebody you really want to find, do the research to figure out where they are in advance, and even like Google photos, look all that kind of stuff up in advance. Look up Google what a photo of the tomb looks like. That's going to help you too. I do love the Parmentier where people leave potatoes. That's one of my favorite ones. But there's some really cool ones of people that you don't even know who they are. It's a really cool way. I have a weird thing. I never step on them. I just have this weird thing about not stepping on a grave or on a dead body. And some of them, they're not even there when they opened, because it was so far outside the city. And it is where Père Lachaise was a person. He was the confessor to Louis XIV, and he had lived near there and had a church there. And that's why it's now called Père Lachaise. It was outside the city. And so nobody wanted to be buried there because it was so far away. And so then they had the idea to move Molière and Jean de La Fontaine out there, even though they're right next to each other, but they're not in there. They're just their tombs. But the two men actually didn't really like each other. And now, symbolically, they're laying there together for eternity. But Eloise and Abelard, they were also moved out there. And it was Josephine Bonaparte who really spurred that one on, because they had their letters were later published, which you could find some of them now published in a book and even online. And let me tell you, he might have been a church official and she was this sweet little innocent young girl, but boy, those letters could get spicy. So, and they were kind of the original Romeo and Juliet. And we did a whole podcast episode about Eloise and Abelard, which was really fun because I've always loved their story. Yeah, Angel, I really want to go out there. So maybe if if I have time when you go out there, when you're there, I'll love to go with you. I want to go see Lafayette, see his tomb. But did you guys have any, jump in if you guys want? I know that some of you always have some really great tips. If you want to jump in and say anything, go ahead and unmute yourself and jump on in. Chrissy.
I don't really have a question on saving money at the moment. My thought would be, how long do we think that this amazing conversion rate is going to last for?
That is, if we all had a crystal ball, right? I don't know. I mean, I think that with, how they're kind of trying to fight inflation, it probably will, keep going for a little bit. I mean, it is pretty amazing. My apartment, I literally sent them months, here and there. I was like, here's for 3 months.
I keep running back and forth to the bank to change as much as I have while
I know. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, considering to what you would have spent last December, it's 20%.
God. It's night and day. It makes a huge difference, especially I'm taking my brother's kids next summer and they are changing money like mad just to catch it while we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, your money will go a lot farther. So, hopefully it lasts for a while, but they were saying it hasn't ever been like this since the euro was introduced 20 years ago, which is pretty astounding.
Is the dollar higher now?
Is what?
Is the dollar higher now?
It's pretty much 1 to 1. I think it was, last time I looked, it was the dollar was 1.02 to 1 euro.
Yeah, basically the same.
So basically the same. At one point it got down, it went a tiny bit below for a day. It was 1 euro. it was just like, I think the dollar was like 0.98 or something crazy. But it's I mean, even just a euro too is practically, I mean, 0.02 cents. It's not, it's still pretty amazing, but it's much better than when it was like $1.22, which is what it's been, I think, for as long as I've been going. So it's pretty nice. When I noticed it was in January when I was leaving. So one thing I always do, and I know that so many of you always go back, you know, you go back to Paris often. One thing I always do is the day before I leave, I go to the ATM and get out 300 euros. And then I just bring that back and I shove it into my passport and throw it in the safe. And so when I get there, I just already have it. I don't have to think about it for a few days. I have that money for the taxi. You know, Chrissy, you going and getting all that now is perfect, because then you don't have to think about it when you get there. The ATM fees and the conversion in the airport is crazy insane. Like, don't get it at the airport. It's really, really expensive. You know, don't get it. I looked at like San Francisco airport one time, and I thought, oh, the ATM, and it said that they give out like all different, you know, they'll give out euros or yen or whatever. It was insane how much. I mean, it was going to cost like $1.75 for like each euro or something. I was just like, what? And just walked away from it. But it, you know, that's where, you know, that kind of stuff. But I always come back with those 300 euros. But that was a day I noticed, and that was when it started coming down in January. And I was like, wait, what? Because usually it'll say $300 euros is at an ATM would always be like $3 or 360 something, because, you know, they're adding their fee on top and the conversion rate. And I went and it said it was like 340 or something, or three. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And then I went again later that day. I was like, this is getting low. And I went and took out more money. So it's really nice now, but I would definitely do exactly what Chrissy is doing. And we've talked about it messaging, and she was like, I'm running to the bank. Get some of that. If you're going to be going back, even if you're not going back till next year, I would definitely go and get some, because it won't always stay like this, unfortunately. But who knows, it's lasting longer than I thought.
Same. I keep running back like I'm Chrissy Warbucks. I'm the same teller seeing me over and over again. She's like, how many times are you going? I was like, I haven't gone yet. I'm saving.
Well, and it's like, I always feel like euros are kind of like monopoly money, because it just, you just are like, I'm always just like, oh, yes. Oh, here's a €4 tip. Oh, here's this, because you don't look at it as the same as like dollar bills. But it is funny when I'm there for like 3 months at a time, and then I come back and then I look at like a US dollar bill. I just look at it like, what is this? It looks weird to me. But it is easy to do that with euros, because you just kind of think it's monopoly money too. Oh, 5%. Oh, Ellen, that's good to know, because the bank, it's never going to be the same conversion as what you see online for the bank, because they add their stuff on top, but it's still better. I mean, the one thing you do not want to do is get to Paris and go to one of those change places, because
no.
They add even more on top of it. So I took a client there, and I think she had 200 euros, and then she ended up getting like, I think she got like $130. Like, I mean, it was crazy the amount that they take from that. Yeah, Faye, Wise is great. That's what actually I use for my apartment, a bunch of other stuff. Wise is great. They, do take a small fee, but that's just like the processing fee. But Wise is fantastic, and it's really easy, and it goes through almost immediately. Oh, Ellen, so B of A is 8%. Yeah, so maybe check your bank, see what your own bank has. But it might just be better just to do it at an ATM when you get there. I know some companies, I think it's a percentage. Wells Fargo, I think, is maybe 1 or 2% that they take from every international transaction. I get to have the lovely experience of opening up a French bank account, so that's something I'm really not looking forward to, but they're making it easy, a lot easier. So I will definitely look forward to all of those fun little things, bureaucratic things I get to do. Did I miss any other? You guys all had such great ideas.
When are you leaving?
I leave in the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the next 2 weeks, I have a bunch of stuff I still need to do. As you can see that this whole wall and everything is here. I'm, you know, in my
Taking all that with you?
No, I mean, there's some things like that the red thing in the middle, my grandpa actually got in Paris in the 40s when he was in World War II. They went over for a day, and it's really cool. And it says Lutetia in the center. It's, you can see the fleur-de-lis and everything. It's really, really faded. And it was hanging at our family's beach house. And years ago, I saw it and I asked my grandma, I was like, can I have that? Can I bring that back? And so she was like, well, sure. And so I put it in this frame. I'm definitely saving that. I have my picture of my grandparents' wedding picture there. That other one above it is a painting they bought at Montmartre. Of course, you have my shoes with the red things on them. But there's my one, I think that was the first time I went to the bar Hemingway when they, you know, my grandparents went and they gave my grandpa an ashtray because he took out his credit card and they were like, oh, Monsieur Hemingway. And so they gave him an ashtray. And then when I went, I said, oh, can I have a menu? And they were like 10 euros. I was like, that's great. So I have that one framed there. So some of those things, definitely the scarf I'm saving, or the square, I'm not sending everything like that over right away. Some of it'll come later. The things I'm sending right away are like my Louvre books and some of the research books I use all the time. Those are boxed up already. This room looks like this is the one room of the house that looks like a bomb hit it. And I have to go through the books of which ones I'm saving, which ones I'm sending right away, which ones I'll send over later. And so maybe I was thinking next weekend, because the weekend is the only time I also have friends that aren't working that come over and graciously help me pack things or go through things. It was pretty much up until recently that it just kept going. I just was purging through everything. The shoes, you know, selling a bunch of my shoes online, which has been an experience. But I am going to today. I keep finding things that are, you know, French and Paris related, and some books that I kind of just would love for them to go to good homes of people that would love it. And so on my list today, and I've been saying this for a week, but I'm going to try to take pictures of them and put them up on eBay, and I will put links to it. And just do it even just for like a few dollars for things. Because some of it's just, that's where it's hard. I'm like, oh, but this is so great. I don't want to just give it to the Goodwill or something like that. I'd rather have people that actually would love it and, you know, take care of it or just enjoy it.
And think of you when they use it.
There you go. But I'm hoping to get some of those things up today. And so I will put links on my Facebook and Instagram for that. And then maybe do next Sunday, I'll let you know. Maybe I'll just do a live Instagram or something from I could just show you this process. I've been making some videos and things like that, going through and going through all the process of packing. And I just have to tell anybody, even if you don't plan on like moving across to the other side of the world, just start going through your stuff now. It's amazing the amount of stuff you accumulate and the amount of stuff you're like, why do I have this? And how much money did I spend on these things? It's just kind of, it really makes me think about, you know, and then I say this now and I'm going to go to the Louvre, you know, the Louvre library and just buy 100 euros worth of books without thinking about it. But just start going through things now, because it's insane how much time it takes, and just kind of it just draining in some ways. But I will maybe do that next Sunday, but it is it's a lot, but I can't wait.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Did I hear you mention Willie's Wine Bar earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to the restaurant next door, Maceo?
No, he has his other wine bar that's like a couple doors down, but I haven't been to the one next to it.
No, he doesn't. Mark's a very good friend of mine.
I love Mark.
Years. And now Adrian too. Have you met Adrian?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But they own Maceo next door,
Yeah.
15 Rue des Petits Champs.
Yeah.
Well, that restaurant is fine dining at very affordable cost. It's about 48 euros at Maceo for a full meal. And they always have a vegetarian option.
Oh, nice.
So if you haven't, I haven't been there for a few years because I moved and then I had a mess of joint replacements.
Oh, no.
Oh, but no, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Now I can walk around Paris again.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah. That's
last
for
time I
sure.
was there, it was awful. I could
Yeah.
hardly walk
Oh.
and I was having to look for the nearest cab stand all the time.
Oh, yeah. That would be difficult.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Like it's very close to, the Grand Colbert, which is very close to Willie's.
Right.
And I went there with clients and I don't think I'd go there again. And I have friends of mine that are like, oh, it's great. And I just thought that like it was really
Grand
overpriced.
Colbert.
Yeah, it was really overpriced for what it was. I thought the servers were especially surly and kind of rude. And I thought you're charging a lot for this. And so, I think it's turned into, I was there actually the night of the election, which also happened to be the day my grandmother passed away. And I was just I didn't tell my clients, I was just trying to get through it. I didn't want to, I just was going to just try not to just sit there and start crying. But it was the night of the election and they said, oh, but nobody we're thinking people would be, erupting with, yay or nay or whichever. And they said, nobody's doing anything. Cause I was like, oh, yay, when we got the thing. And I was like, everybody in here's American, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that's when it comes to restaurants to save money. That is what you do have to think about, because a lot of restaurants that are tourist, that they really are pushing into tourists, a lot of times that means that the prices will be higher and the quality will be lower. So just be kind of careful with that, especially if you are in very touristy areas. Like if you go to the Champs-Élysées or you're around the Eiffel Tower, just walk a block away, just walk a block around the corner, just walk a few blocks away from it. And usually you could find amazing food. It's going to be, that might be actually worth the price of what you were going to pay. If a restaurant outside has the menu and it has flags on it, so if it has like a British flag and a Italian flag and a Japanese flag, don't go there at all, because that is what they are doing. I have heard, I've never seen this, but I have heard that sometimes a menu in English, the prices will be higher, especially if you're in one of those really touristy areas, because they know that you're not going to come again. They know that these tourists are just coming there on the Champs-Élysées, they're getting something to eat. You're going to pay much higher prices. It also goes for a lot of the cafes for coffee. If the cheapest place to have if you want an espresso or a, cafe creme, go, and you're not in a huge, you just want to go there, have your coffee and go right up to the bar, go up to the zinc bar, and just go up there and order your espresso. Sometimes it's half the price of what it would be if you're on a terrace. So the zinc bar, the price of the bar will be the lowest. If you're sitting at a table inside, it'll be a little bit more. And a lot of times if you're sitting out on the terrace, the price is even higher. So it is, but sitting on the terrace, it's worth it. And it's not like it's, the 10 euros. It's not a huge jump. But sitting on a terrace in Paris is pretty much where it's all at.
Oh, yeah.
If I can say about the Grand Colbert too, I've noticed that a lot of people think that restaurant was chosen for its cuisine. It was actually chosen because of how easy it was to film in there because of the cubic layout. So people think they're going there for some, gourmet feast, and it's, it's fine. It's not terrible naturally, but it's very pricey for what it is, which is what the last time I went, I brought a girlfriend. She was dying to go because of the film. And she even said, it's like wedding food.
Yeah.
So
I only ever went there once and I wouldn't go again.
Yeah.
I'm a retired chef and
it's beautiful.
I did. It's beautiful, but the food is horrible.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's, anytime it's going to have, and I really love that movie. I mean, I love Diane Keaton and I love that movie.
Yeah, me too.
But anytime I'm going to go and see like the giant movie poster on the outside of something, I'm like, nope. I mean, you could go to, the Café du Melon, which is up on, on the Rue Le Pic up at Montmartre, and you walk in the very back, there's the big painting or the big photo of Amélie. But it's which one is that? Is that as good as no? Something's Got to Give. Is it that the one? Something's
Yeah.
Got to Give. And I mean, I love that, but it's also so funny when you watch that movie, if you watch the end of it again, and if you know Paris, it's like they went from the movie and now they're by Hotel de Ville, and then they turn around and they're like, so it's just like, there's no way that
There's no way you could do that.
But that's the magic of movies and TV and stuff. But yeah, it's and I always wanted to go there, and I went there, and then I was like, I wanted it, and I asked for like a French 75, and they were like, no. And I was like, but you like, they have a whole huge bar, and they were like, nope, just these drinks on the menu, like the specialty cocktails they had. And they said, and I was like, well, but you have this and this. And they said, they were like, no. And I'm like, okay. So it was kind of like, and I think I just thought they were really kind of overly rude, and just the guy practically like threw the plate on the table, and just, I was like, for the price you're paying, you can maybe be a little bit. And I've worked in the restaurant industry, so I'm a little bit more sensitive, but I'm also I'm very easygoing with that, where I'm like, just bring me my, just, you don't need to like overly placate me. I'm good. I just kind of thought, for as busy as it was and how many tourists they get in there, then maybe they could be, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful restaurant, like we said, but it was kind of a bummer.
Claudine, I just wanted to add, I was there originally in 2004, just 1 year after the movie, and they were so proud of a very large scrapbook of
cool.
all the stars that were there, et cetera, et cetera. And I learned that the movie, more or less, that was filmed there in the restaurant was filmed on a Sunday morning, and it was locals that participated. And I've been back through the last several years, and I was there last April. And I said, oh, may I see the scrapbook? And the server, he just looked at me like, what scrapbook? So definitely things have changed.
Yeah.
I didn't find any servers to be surly, but fortunately the person I was with spoke fluent French, and it was interesting how we were then treated versus just coming in off the street as a tourist. And Jean's nodding her head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another restaurant I really like to go to and definitely get a reservation and ask for the central room is Bowfinger.
Yeah.
And I try to go during the week for sure. Yeah.
And that's a really great for saving money too. Those are great for you get
Thank you for that.
a lot.
Right.
Yeah. And they're well priced. Yeah. And then you're right next to the Bastille column. All shiny and gold up there. Yeah, those are great ones. Thanks, Judy. Does anybody have any other ones? Anything you want to add before I return to my packing misery?
Another one of my favorite places is Josephine.
Yes. Very difficult to get a reservation there. So if it's fantastic,
plan way ahead, or
way
have a local make the reservation for you before you go. But it is fabulous.
Yes.
It's not terribly expensive. And if you love wine, they have a fabulous wine cellar at crazy low prices, all things considered.
Yeah. And the duck confit there is delicious.
Oh, the boeuf bourguignon is the thing dreams are made of, and also the Grand Marnier soufflé.
Oh, delicious! Yeah, that's.
And where is what arrondissement is Josephine in?
In the 7th. It's on isn't it on Rue Vaugirard, I believe, June?
I can't remember.
I think so. I think it is, but it's in the 7th, like far 7th.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really good. But I actually just looked for a client yesterday and there's no reservations for like, I mean, some places only will open up 60 to 90 days in advance
Mhm.
for reservations. So if you do go to something, La Mijan, I think he does it maybe a month or 40 days in advance. So just kind of check some of the websites. If you go and you see where it says like there's nothing available, just maybe check again. If it's someplace you really, really want to go to, just keep checking. Because some of them don't, they only do it for certain periods of time. But that is a great one. I love that one. And then Willie's, of course, that's
Juveniles too, around the corner on the Rue Richelieu.
Yeah. There's quite a few really good ones in the second, which is nice. Le Fumar, which is at the really close to Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois at the end of the Louvre. I love that. Every time I've eaten there dozens and dozens of times, always really great. They have a really good 2 or 3 course lunch. And the menu changes a couple times every season. It's really, really great there. And it's really close to the Louvre too, which is where, that's where you kind of, as I was saying, anytime the restaurants around tourist areas, that's where you're kind of you never know what you're going to get. But if there are a few of them, and I have on my website, I have a list of favorite restaurants, and I need to update that some more and maybe even add it by arrondissement so that you could find some. But they're all ones I've been to many times. They're all ones that are really, really great.
There used to be a place on the Rue Soufflot called La Fontaine. And I went there from the first time I ever was in Paris in the modern times. And last time I was there, I was walking around there in the neighborhood and it's gone.
Oh, no.
And it was a little neighborhood restaurant. And then all of a sudden it expanded. Like they took another place and they ended up on the corner. And maybe they got too big for their britches. I don't know what happened. But it was the food was always so good and it was so inexpensive.
That's too bad. It's hard when you find a place that you love and then it's gone or it changes or,
It's like it's over a period of like 25 years and then it's gone.
Yeah.
We just expect it to be there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, luckily with COVID, I mean, I don't think any of my favorites that I always love, I don't think we lost any of those to COVID, but I know that there were some. There's a place, I'll have to see when I get back. There's a place near Boulevard Saint-Germain in Odeon that was supposed to be closing at the end of May, and I haven't seen anything about it. It had been there for a really long time. I can't remember the name of it, but some of the people were like, we're tired of doing this, so we're retiring. But all righty. Well,
go
ahead.
Have you ever been to Fish?
No.
Boissonnerie?
No.
It's in the 6th. When I was there last time, I stayed on the Rue de l'Odéon, right next door
the best
to
street in Paris.
The Ambassade de Bourgogne. Fabulous little wine bar. But it was across Boulevard Saint-Germain. I'm not sure. Does Rue de l'Odéon continue?
No, it stops there at the Carrefour de l'Odéon.
Okay, so anyway, but it's right up there, and it's not a fish restaurant. It's a boissonnerie. So that's why they call it Fish. But it's very modern and really, really good.
Oh, good. We'll check that out because, in Carrefour de l'Odéon, that's where all the favorite ones are. All the compliments. And the Bread's Cafe for the delicious jambon.
Oh, yes.
Crepe, which is, I can't wait to have. But all right. Well, thank you guys all so much. And it was so nice to see everybody. And then I will put either on my Instagram or Facebook, probably both of them. And maybe next Sunday, try to do one and maybe just do it Instagram live. And then I'll just walk around and show you the nightmare of things in my house. I did see somebody asking about those purses. I'm holding on to all of those. there's a few, and I even found some that like belong to my great aunts from like 1900, and they still have this pretty little hanky in it. And my grandma also had some amazing some like these ultra suede jackets and all of this stuff. And so I was like, oh, these are perfect for Paris. So I keep I'm seeming to have a problem with accessories including coats that I need to I got to start putting things actually into the luggage and to see how bad I have this. But thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a lovely Sunday. Tomorrow the episode of the podcast is going to be about the Tuileries and outside the Louvre. So we're doing a bunch of ones so that you could actually, kind of like the live walks that we do on Sundays, that you could actually take these, save these episodes and then kind of go and walk around some of these places. Sometimes with the walks, depending on where we are or how fast Kate is moving, sometimes there's whole things that I want to share, but we move past it. So doing some of these on the podcast, I'm able to kind of fill in some of those spots. So it's kind of a fun way that you could just go and do, I'd prefer, if you're coming to Paris, reach out and let's do a live walk, a live tour together. But you could also, take some of these episodes if you go and just want to walk around Montmartre or wherever you're going to go, and check them out and listen to them as you walk. And thank you guys so much. And I'm going to put a bunch of these notes and links and stuff on my website. There is a tab that says Live Walks in Paris. That's where I put a lot of the notes and stuff and links that we might mention. I should have Jean do it because she's always so good up there taking all these notes. I always see her just diligently writing away.
You're right.
Yeah, and Judy, you guys are so good. But I will love to hopefully see you guys tomorrow. And then the next Sunday, we won't be able because I will be on a plane. But my friend Catherine said I should do one from the airport, do a live Instagram. I said over as I'm sitting there drinking champagne and in between tears of, realizing I'm leaving my grandmother's house the last time. So, but I will.
Claudine, did everything come through?
Everything's moving along. So everything
you got the long-term visa?
Everything's good to go. Yep. Yeah.
Congrats. That's great.
Thank you. So I will hopefully see you guys all next Sunday. I'll let you know. Most likely, I'm sure I'll do it. I'm up every morning at 2 a.m. So what else do I have to do? But I will see you guys, and then check on my Instagram for more stories every day. Thank you guys. And thanks all so much for chiming in with all your great tips. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye.